Hey everyone, welcome back to another daily creative challenge. My name is Jesus Ramirez. How are you guys doing today? This is going to be the daily creative challenge number 8, and we're going to work on creating a retro effect in Photoshop. More specifically, we're going to recreate the VHS look effect. How are you guys? I'm taking a look at the chat. I see a lot of familiar faces. Claudia from Print My Soul, who actually will be streaming starting next week. She'll be the person doing the creative challenges for the 2 weeks following my creative challenge. So starting next week, you'll see Claudia. We have Cheryl, Daniela, Anna, Aria, Louis, Ralph, Sam, Christine, Dan. How are you guys doing today? Thanks so much for joining me today. Before we get started, I just want to show you guys this page, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. This is the Daily Creative Challenge page. It's found under behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. And when you come into this page, make sure that you click on this big blue button to take the Photoshop challenges with me. Also, keep scrolling down to the bottom of the page and click on the Join Us button with the chat with the community page. That is the page right above my head, that link there. You can go on that link and it'll take you to the Discord app, which is a community where you will find all the people who have been following my challenges and other people's challenges. And this is this person, Loki, posted the before and after of the recoloring object method that we used in yesterday's stream, so you can check out the recording if you missed it. But anyway, you can come into Discord and share the work that you've made while following the streams, ask questions, comments, concerns. You'll see myself and all the other Adobe mentors, Claudia, Sam, and Tim, answering questions. So check out the Discord page. You can check out the past challenges, ask questions, tips and tricks, a whole bunch of stuff. Make sure that you check out all the tabs. But the important ones for the challenge is the current challenge tab, where you can share your work. You can see some of the before and afters from other people who were following the challenges. So make sure that you check it out. Let me mention one other thing on the behance.net/challenge/Photoshop page. Make sure that you go into the 7th Daily Creative Challenge, which is today, Wednesday, September 11th. Where we're going to work on that retro effect to recreate the VHS look. Make sure that you click on Get Started so that you can go into a Dropbox link where you can download a PSD to follow along. The photo is not really necessary. You can follow with whatever image that you like, but you can use this image to practice with and then use your own images once you learn how to apply the effect, and share that with us on Discord. So let me quickly look at the chat and see if there's any questions or comments before we get started. Good morning, everybody. I just see a whole bunch of good mornings, a bunch of hellos. So hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing my Behance page, Sam. You can follow me on Behance if you like. The link is in the chat. I'm at JR from PTC. And actually, just to show you what that looks like, I can just go into my Behance page. So that's what my Behance page looks like. And you can see some of the work that I've made. Awesome, cool. It looks like there's no questions, so why don't we get started with Photoshop? Let me just bring it up, and this is what we're gonna work with. I actually added one extra thing on my file that you won't have on yours, and I decided to add text to it just to sort of enhance the effect. So if you want to add the same text, let me show you where I found that font. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything on fonts.adobe.com that resembled that VHS font, but this is usually where I get my fonts. Unfortunately, there was nothing there that I could use that had that VHS look. So instead, I found this font called VCR OSD Mono on thefont.com. So that's what I used, and I'll paste the link in the comments so that those of you who want to download that font can have access to it. Sam wrote, I need that tracksuit. Yes, I also need that tracksuit as well. Actually, I had a tracksuit that was not so different from that, from this purple one. My tracksuit was purple on top and then white and then purple again, so it's very similar. I'm a 90s kid, so I was in middle school and high school in the 90s, so I probably looked a lot like this guy when I was like, 12 through 17. um, but yeah, so that's where I found the font, and you can use that font to recreate this text if you like. That's not really necessary. It's just a little extra step that I took that I thought would make the image more realistic. So we're not going to worry about text or fonts anymore. I just wanted to throw that out there to begin with. And what we're going to move on to is actually creating that VHS look. So I'm just going to disable the text layer, and we're going to work with this layer. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to, this is a smart object, just so that I work a little faster. I'm going to be applying some filters and I don't want to slow down. So I'm just going to rasterize it and just work with this, a rasterized layer. So I'm not working with the high resolution Adobe stock file linked to the cloud. I'm just working with the shrunken down rasterized version. So some filters will work just a little faster. So what I'm going to start with is just by simply duplicating the layer, Control J, Command J on the Mac to duplicate. And I have this layer copy. And what we're going to work on first is creating a distortion effect, making it seem as if this image was distorted, but then have those edge halos that were very prominent in old VHS tapes. By the way, do you guys know what VHS are, VCRs? Am I is this the right audience to reference VHS and VCRs? But I grew up with VHS and VCRs. I used to have a ton of them. I used to buy them. Like, I don't even know if people buy DVDs these days. Everybody's streaming everything. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to recreate, the old VHS look. So if you put in your old VHS tape and try to watch a movie or something, and it was an old tape, you had this weird distortions and all this stuff going on. So that's actually what we're trying to replicate today. But anyway, so with the layer selected, the couple copy layer selected, I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to bring up the layer style dialog box. Another way that you can get to it is just by clicking on this FX icon and just selecting any one of these options. I'll just select blending options and it comes up. And if you actually disable like one of these layers, or I'm sorry, one of these checkboxes, you disable the channels. And the reason that you really can't see that is because we have the duplicate, something similar, very similar right next to it, right under it. So that we can see that, we're not only going to disable the layer below, but I'm also going to press Control T, Command T to transform. And this is the keyboard shortcut that wasn't really working on, I think, yesterday's or the day before yesterday on that stream. I was telling you guys that if you're zoomed in and you press Control T, Command T to transform and you can't see the transformation handles, that you should press Control 0, that's Command Z on the Mac, to zoom out and you can see the transformation handles. So that's the bird's eye view. And for some reason I was having issues with it the other day, but today it worked just fine. So if you press Control T on Windows, Command T on the Mac, you'll get the transformation handles. But if you can't see them, just press Control 0, Command 0, and then the image will zoom out and you'll be able to see them. So what I'm going to do with this copy, I'm just going to scale it up just a little bit. So it's just a little bit bigger than the layer below. Then I'll double click on the side of the layer and watch what happens when I start disabling these checkboxes. I turn off those channels, right? So if I turn off the green channel, for example, and I enable the layer below, we get that weird effect. See that? See that effect we get? Just because the layers are no longer matching and we're turning off a channel. So we get this weird look. So now that we created that effect, we can actually press Control T, Command T to transform again, and then we can either bring it in just to make the effect subtle or just really, really strong. In this case, I want a subtle effect, so I don't want it to be too different than the layer below. So something like that. See that? It's basically what I had before. I also want to create sort of like this weird glitchy effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Filter, Distort, and I'm going to select Shear. And actually you can see the shear that I used before. So what you can do is you can create these little points. I'm going to drag them out. I'll drag these little points out. And then you can click and drag to create a point, and you can see in the preview window I'm starting to distort the image. So I don't want to distort it that much. I mean, you could if you wanted to, and you get an effect that looks like that. But what I'm going to do instead is just create a much more subtle effect. So I'm just going to create all these little dots and just manipulate the image like so. And press OK. And notice now how I get more of a distortion. So it's your call if you want to just have that subtle distortion I had before, or you want to create something more intense. Totally up to you. So in this case, I think I like this look a lot better. Thank you, Jesse. I'm looking at the comments, and Jesse wrote, I like where this is going. I think you're talking about the challenge. I hope that you are. Axel wrote, love the effect. Let me see. Someone there is lives in Illinois. I go to Chicago quite often. Aria. I was just in Chicago February, I think. Lovely city. But yeah. So it looks like there's no questions, no comments. So let's keep going. So once again, just to make sure that everybody understands, what I did is I selected the original layer. I duplicated by pressing Ctrl-J, Command-J on the Mac. Then I double click to the side of the layer to bring up the layer style window. And from here, I disabled the RGB channels. Right now, if I disable a channel, nothing's going to happen because the layer below is exactly the same as the layer on top. But just so you can see the difference, I'll just disable the red channel this time. So I'll uncheck R, press OK. But once you start distorting the layer and the layers no longer match, you'll see that there is, in fact, this effect being created by having the channel turned off. See that? And I can actually start combining them, right? So like there's no reason why I can't have this layer and then the one that I created to begin with and have them all blend together. See how they're all blending together? See that? So you can have one level of distortion, two levels of distortion. It's totally up to you what you do. You can increase and reduce the opacity. Again, I'm just showing you the different options. There's no real, like a specific recipe that you should follow. You should just play around with all these different settings, all these different layers, and just get an effect that looks good to your eye. So you could just go with just one single layer of distortion. That's totally fine. You can add multiple layers, adjust the opacity. Totally up to you. Feel free to play around with whatever you think works best for your image. And let me add one more layer, but this layer is going to be a pattern layer. So we're going to create a new pattern, and we're going to create a pattern that is going to allow us to create scan lines. So I'm going to go into File, New, and I'm going to create a new document. And in this new document, we're simply going to create some scan lines. For some reason, this is not coming up. I'm not sure what's wrong with the new document window. Usually there's these boxes that come up and you can type in numbers to create a new document. So I'll try it one more time. File, New, and my new document window is not working. I have no idea why. When Photoshop doesn't work for me, usually what I do is restart it. So I guess I'll restart Photoshop so that I don't lose my work. I'm going to save the file. So Control-S, Command-S to save. I'll close, see this is a challenge from yesterday, so I'll close that window and I'll close this Photoshop window. Actually, I'll close the entire application, and then we'll start from scratch. So yeah, guys, that happens sometimes. Sometimes Photoshop may get a little glitchy. Don't worry about it. Save your documents, restart it, and we'll see if it works. And if it doesn't, we'll try to figure it out together. So let me know what you guys are up to today in the challenge while this thing starts in the chat, while this thing restarts again. Anna wrote, yeah, Chicago is a cool city, and I like the way you photoshopped the bean. Oh yeah, so thanks for mentioning that. So while I was in Chicago, I photoshopped the bean. Let me show you guys what she's talking about. So in my Instagram page, @JR from PTC, I did this in, I shot it with my Google Pixel, and it was edited with Lightroom Mobile, but the original photo is, oh wait, that's not the original photo. That's the original photo. So I shot that at night with my Google Pixel, and then I edited it in Lightroom Mobile. So that's what she's talking about on there. Also, just because I know some of you guys saw that, I was in, where was I? Probably in Toronto. I don't know. I was in Canada for sure, and I shot this picture, and then I edited it with Lightroom Mobile. So yeah, so I post some Lightroom Mobile edits. This is actually a tutorial on my YouTube channel. So anyway, but that's what she was talking about, the being in Chicago. And yeah, it's a really cool effect. But thank you for mentioning it. I think it was Aria. If it wasn't, I'm sorry, but I lost the comment. Anna, thank you, Anna, for mentioning my Photoshop bean on my Instagram. Anyway, so let's see what's going on with Photoshop. So the file is back. For some reason, my layers panel collapsed. I'm going to bring it back up. And if I go into File, New, it's working. Yay. So yeah, for whatever reason, I needed to restart Photoshop. So again, no big deal. If something like that happens to you, don't freak out. Save your files and then restart the app and it should work. So now that I brought up the new document window again, I'm just going to create a very, very small document. So the width could really be 1 pixel for this, but just so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to make it a little bigger, like 50 or 20 or something, just so that you could see what I'm doing. And then the height, I'll probably make it, we'll go with 10 pixels. And press OK. So now we have that really, really tiny little rectangle, right? So what I'm going to do is that for half of this rectangle, so like the half is right there, I'm going to fill it in with black, and I'll just leave the other half filled with white. So I'll make a selection with the rectangular marquee tool. And then with black, I'm going to hold Alt and backspace. That's Option backspace in the Mac to fill with the foreground color. Notice that the foreground color is black. And it fills with that. Again, this could just be a 1 pixel document. So I'm just going to crop it so that you can see. So 1 pixel. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000 pixels wide or 1 pixel wide for this. So we just have a document that's essentially 1 pixel width. And what did we make it? 50 or whatever we made it, 10. Sorry, we made it 10 tall. And what I'm going to do now is just make a pattern out of this. So I'm going to go into Edit, Define Pattern. And I'm going to call it Scan Lines. And I'm going to go back into my working document, and then I'm going to go into the pattern fill where the adjustment layers are. Just pattern, and look at that. The pattern that is selected by default is the last pattern that I created. So I can either use these scan lines or make them smaller. Maybe I can do 25%. I can do 50%, whatever you think will work for your image. I'll press OK at 50%. But by the way, the reason I'm saying, percentages like 25, 75, and 50 is because I think they look better. For some reason, if you do something weird, like, I don't know, like 83 or something, you get these little blurry lines. But if you, I didn't do 83, I did 783. But if I zoom in, you'll still see that they're blurry, right? But if you just do 75, actually it still looks blurry. 50, they look less blurry, I guess is what I'm trying to say. At 100%, they should look fine. But if I zoom in, obviously they're going to be blurry. But anyway, so once you select the width that you like, I think I like 75 better. You can just go into the blending modes and select soft light, and now you have your scan lines. And actually, now that I see it, I think I made like 100 better. So we'll go back to 100. No, maybe 75. Yeah, so you gotta keep playing around with it and see what you like, and then obviously bring down the opacity a little bit. You don't want the scan lines to be too visible. So maybe add about 15% and zoom in, and you start getting that effect that you see there. Let me see. I thought I saw a question. Just scroll up. I saw a little question mark in like the corner of my eye, and I'm trying to see what that question was. It says, is there anywhere where we can see the final result for this image? Well, once I'm done, you'll see the final result. If you want to see something that I've done that's very similar to this, I have a tutorial on my YouTube channel where I do a similar effect. You can see that final result there as well. But you do have, you'll see once I'm done the final result. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to treat this as a single image so I can apply other effects to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top layer in this case. Actually, I'll enable the text layer as well. And by the way, with the text layer, you can actually do the same. You can disable, what do you call them? You can disable the channels. So with the text group selected, I can duplicate it by pressing Control-J, Command-J on the Mac, and then double-click. Actually, I'll move the group first. So I'll just move it like a couple pixels to the right, for example. And then I can double-click to the side of the layer and disable a channel as well. So see that? See how I'm disabling the channel, and it also applies that weird 3D looking effect, like that 3D glasses looking effect, and that's really what I want. So I'm just disabling these and looking at the one that gives me the best result. So disabling the green channel in this case gives me a result that I like, and I'll press OK. So now that I have all these layers creating this effect, what I'm gonna do is just with the layer on top selected, I'm gonna hold Shift and select the layer on the bottom. I'm going to right click and I'm going to convert it into a smart object. And actually, while I'm working, I'm already thinking about the effects that I'm gonna apply, and I decided as I'm doing this that I'm gonna change my mind on one thing. I'm not going to select the text layers, just the actual images and the scan lines, because in reality, the text is being applied by the VCR or the TV or whatever. So then if you distort the image, the text itself really wouldn't be that distorted, just a little distorted. So I think it might even look better if we don't distort the text. But you can distort the text if you want. It's up to you. So again, a bunch of possibilities. They're all endless possibilities, so come up with whatever idea you think works best. But anyway, so I'm going to convert it to a smart object, having all these layers as a single piece, and that's going to allow me to go into filter, camera raw, and I can apply different kinds of effects. And actually this is the entire image, so we were cropped into the image, but you're going to apply the effect to the entire image, and that's okay. So the thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that my blacks are not completely black, so I'm going to drag them to the right, because if you remember from old VHSs, like there was no true black, it was always off black. So I just don't want anything to be completely black, and maybe increase the contrast and just keep adjusting the different adjustments. Maybe reduce the texture, because again, the old VHS tapes are not very sharp, so we don't want a lot of texture. You can adjust the vibrance to, we don't want, maybe you want something that's highly saturated or not saturated at all. Again, it all depends on the actual effect that you're going for, but use the vibrance slider to adjust the saturation. And one of the reasons I came here was to go into the effects tab under the FX icon and just increase the grain, just to make it a little grainy. And I'm going to add just some post-cropping vignetting, and then I'm going to press OK. So you can see the before and the after. And actually I'll zoom in so that you can see the details that I added with the grain. I just think it helps it look more older, more retro. So this is the final effect. Somebody was asking for the final effect, and that's what it looks like. Again, just look, when you follow this live stream on your own images, you'll notice that in some ways I was a little undecisive on which effect to apply. You don't have to apply all the effects that applied. For example, once I go back into my smart object, if you double click on the smart object, it opens up in a new tab. Like I said before, you're free to do what you like. Maybe you don't want to add scan lines, so you don't have to add those. Maybe you only want level of distortion, so you don't add the second one. Totally up to you. Maybe you want to add a third level of distortion, and that's totally cool. So for example, you can duplicate the layer, take it on top, and then just turn off another channel, and then you distort this one even more. So filter, distort, shear, and then you just do something crazy like that, and that's totally cool. So totally up to you what you do. Since this is a smart object, once I close it and save, it will update on my final image. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. We have like a minute or so before I let Mercedes, and I'm sorry, Mercedes, I think I'm going to butcher your last name, but I think it's pronounced Bazan. So Mercedes is coming up, and she's going to be working on designing for film festivals. So check her out right after this stream. Let me see if there's any questions. I'm scrolling up. I have about a minute. Let me see. Thank you guys. A lot of people are saying thank you. Looks really cool. Thank you, Justina. Thank you, Christine. I love the way you're adding noise. Which font did I use? It was a font that I mentioned earlier in the stream. You can check out the recording. It's one of the first things that I mentioned. I forget the name. It's VCR ODS or something like that. I placed the link on the chat earlier. Yep. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being here with me. I'll be back again tomorrow for another daily creative challenge. I got 2 more to go. Wait, today's Wednesday. So I got 2 more to go. I got tomorrow and Friday. So yeah, thank you guys for being here with me. Don't forget to submit your work to the Discord page. I would love to see your VHS effect. I'll be back again tomorrow. Make sure you stay tuned for Mercedes. She's coming right up right after me. And also next week, Claudia from Print My Soul will be doing the daily creative challenges. So check her out as well. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys again tomorrow morning. Have a great, great day.